Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Blade the Series, Season 1, Episode 10. We are pretty much getting close to the very end of this show. And really, it kind of also is getting to the point of me not even needing to need IMDb on hand with my phone, just because really there's not a whole lot of new people coming into the fold. Collins is to meet a girl in this episode named Jessica. Uh, really ties into the past of Marcus and his conflict with Demick, I believe his name is in this episode. Because some people pronounce it Dominique, and then some people pronounce it Demick. Like Demick pronounces it as Demick. So really it just like comes down to just like the wire of this episode where we're like now starting to just kind of finish up the show. And I can easily probably understand why this second season wasn't picked up. Plus I think it was probably just meant to be a first season thing, just as a buffer to be something after like UFC went off the air. But I think probably no one cared about anything that was to happen after UFC matches, and that's probably where the show just trickled off. But yeah, so but at least people found this show later on, and I greatly appreciate that. So thank you for anybody watching this review, because really, like, it's actually been fun going into this show, going back into this show, and like there have been plenty of episodes that I've completely forgotten about because my life at some point just easily becomes a blur. So really thank anybody for being and watching this series. Just because I know that it's probably not like a huge like, oh my god, Blade the series, I need to come in here and watch this. Everybody goes crazy for Blade the series, I'm sure. But thanks for just being a part of this. So yeah, so this is a like it's another barely see Blade episode. Really we're tying into Marcus and Krista's relationship, or really just Marcus's flashbacky thing. So Krista has to feel more like sympathetic for Marcus in this episode. And also, like, we're having some things come to a head. Charlotte is kind of finding out that her assistant is gone missing. Demick is consistently in this episode wanting to consistently crave power no matter what time period it is. And really that's pretty much about it. Like, really that's pretty much the whole long and the skinny of this episode. Yeah, there's some Blade stuff here and there, but really a lot of it is just carried on the flashbacks of Marcus. So I'm like that's kind of a weird like we're getting almost to the tail end of this show, and they're kind of again forgetting about the guy that is held on to the title screen for a number of episodes now. Like they basically continue to forget that this is like a Blade show. But I think they were going into flashbacky things because like there's quite a bit of times where like Buffy the Vampire would go into flashbacks about their enemy or their nemesis or whatever. And plus we've had a ton of flashbacks of Blade, so I guess they figure, well, we need flashbacks of Marcus now. We need to figure out how to write this in, how Marcus can have a flashback. So that way, like, it showcases our, like, how, like, people should invest in Marcus because he's been on 10 shows already, so he should have been already a person to invest in regardless. But let's figure out a way to like, invest in him more. If people weren't supposed to like him because he's the villain, let's figure out a way to make people all of a sudden like him and invest in him. They should have actually done this show way sooner, but then again, it's to lead to an important part at the end of this episode. So technically, I can understand why they do this that way. So, anyways, I think it's that coveted time to go into spoiler territory. I don't know why I'm talking like this way, like I sound like a radio man. So, it's about time to say it is that coveted time yet again to go into, sadly. Spoiler time! Spoiler time! It's about that time again to spoil this movie, or this show. Every single time I always mix it up, and you would think by now I would get spoilers like correct at this point in time, but I always am like, it's a movie, it's a show, it's a thing to watch. So it's about that time. So let's get into it. So really, in the beginning of this episode, Krista is just to be like, it seems like she's like a vampire rebellion. She's having like some rebel times. She's having her like teen angst episode, bizarrely. And so Marcus is to kind of like tell her where her place is. That, like, yeah, so what if you have vampire teen angst? So what? So does everyone else. Like, you're not alone in this. Like, you're not, like, unique or a beautiful snowflake. Even though you tend to have your stories be a lot more important than anyone else's in this show, mind your place. So, so let's get into this. So, after so Chase is to talk about Lisa Starr on how like she was running amok, and but eventually that was to be like dealt with, and it's no longer an existing thing. But Chase goes to Marcus with this and is to like basically say, you know what, it's probably time to like start cleaning out our ranks, do some spring cleaning, and I think Krista is probably one of those. Because when she was to turn her mother without their say so, like that's basically when it's time to pull the ripcord on Krista and just be like, you know what, she's getting a little bit out of hand. But Marcus is like, no, 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 like she still has potential, and we're not going to get rid of her. So Krista is to go to a bar and immediately get hit on by some guy because it's like, oh, he's like, yeah, beautiful woman shouldn't be paying for her drinks. Ha 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 ha. Like, because this guy wants something out of this deal, and this deal is to have him go and take a woman and basically start to force herself on her, and but that'll happen eventually. We'll get to that part. So Krista's at this bar and she is starting to see ghosts in the mirrors or off to the side. She's starting to see the Star family, and she's starting to reflect on her past and her ghosts in the mirrors and so on and so forth. But then this guy comes in like, "Hey, beautiful woman shouldn't be paying for her drinks," and so Krista is just like having this guy go on and blah 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 blah. So this guy is to mention that it's like, well, hey, like, are you drinking to have a good night, or are you drinking because you had a bad day? And Chris is like, you know what? Like, I just don't need this. Like, I like go ahead and leave. Like, thanks for the drink, but get out of here. So this guy goes off and finds yet another woman to go and take advantage of. And so Krista goes and takes this guy and tosses him over this fence filled with barbed wire. And this guy, like, instantly deathed from that. Which I'm naturally assuming, because I guess if you brutally fall on barbed wire, you would just hope to die regardless. So, Krista saves this guy from that and eventually makes her way to Marcus's place, where she is to have her teen angst against Marcus, and Marcus is kind of just like tired of that. Plus, Krista is kind of getting memories of flashbacks of Marcus and his past. So Marcus is to like set Krista straight because he's just kind of like, he's tired of her like teen angst, and he's tired of her like moping and groping about, oh no, I'm no longer a human anymore. So Marcus just gives a thing of blood from himself because Krista goes and like slices Marcus's face. So Marcus goes and gives Krista a thing of blood to just be like, well, hey, like you're not the only one that's like had like you're not the only one that's kind of lost something. You're not the only one that's felt angry or uh like felt that they've lost things and so on and so forth. And then Krista is starting to reflect on things. But then all of a sudden eventually Krista is to like I guess because of the rush of uh Marcus's blood, Krista needs to go and sleep it off. And Krista is consistently seeing memories of Marcus, and Marcus is to head into Krista's bed and kind of give her the rest of the backstory of something that she didn't get. So Krista is to go and be like in a hologram or a flashback or whatever that we want to phrase this. And so Krista is watching on as Marcus was to have a building getting refurbished because evidently Marcus and I think Isabel were to have bought this building, and they're like, yeah, like we're gonna refurbish this thing and people are gonna love it, everyone's gonna come in here and just like say that this is spectacular. High fives all around by everybody. As soon as the building comes in, they're like, whoa, that building. So Marcus is to mention to Isabel how like he's become a better man because he's been with Isabel, and Isabel is like, you know what, that's great. Like, yeah, you know, it's great. High fives, everybody. High fives. Great day, everyone. So Isabel is kind of mentioning like where their path is going to lead. Maybe after this business is a success, maybe they can get married, maybe they can have children, maybe they can go and have a white picket fence, maybe they can go and watch Blade the series, the whole thing, right in one sitting if that works for them. And Marcus is like, well, yeah, like there's like potential is endless and all this kinds of stuff. So yeah, something's going to end during this part here. So Marcus is to go on and just like saw away at some piece of wood, just viciously just saw at this piece of wood like it has a vendetta against him. And so all of a sudden, like Marcus is sawing away at this piece of wood because they're putting together this building. And so all of a sudden there are these guys that are to come in, and one of them is Demick from the past. And so Demick is to mention to Marcus in this past sequence, because we're still in flashback territory. Demick is to already say, it's like, well, hey, like it looks like you guys are putting up a new store in my town. Well, that's great. And so Demick is right away asking for protection money. And Marcus is like, well, I don't think we're going to need anything from you. If anything, like, this building is still, like, brand new, and we haven't even started any kind of business, so we're not going to do any business with you. And Demick is like, well, hey, then I'll come back when your business is starting, and I'll see how it's going, and then I'll see how much money you're going to have to pay me, kind of thing. And so Marcus is kind of shooing these guys away, and so Demick is to leave. So, like, I think I'm just going to cover all of these flashbacks, just get those all over with, and just to kind of get this complete Ash-like story. So Marcus is to get the business up and running, and so it thinks that things to be assuming to be going well. So Demek comes back and he's like, "Hey, about that money, about that, like, how about you pay me, and you pay me pretty good, because I just have something that you don't." And Marcus is like, "No, no, I'm not gonna pay you. Like, I don't need your protection. I'm not going to pay you." And so Demek is like, "Well, I'm going to give you a good enough reason for wanting my protection." And so Demek goes and bites Isabel, and not only that, but then Demek also just like takes Marcus's wife right in front of him and just starts like giving her the 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 trickle in the pickle, if you know what I mean. Starts having his way with her right in front of Marcus, and Marcus is being held by these two goons, and Isabel is being held sadly by Demek. And so again, Demek is continuously biting Isabel, I guess drain her of all of her bloodily fluids to just show like, yeah, you're going to need this guy, Demek, to you're gonna pay one way or the other. Because I guess really considering Marcus wasn't gonna pay, Demek is collecting interest and also like cementing that Marcus needs to pay. So Demek goes and leaves, and we keep seeing these like tribal things of Marcus eventually going and I guess becoming a vampire via these tribal people to I guess seek vengeance on Demek, but I guess that never actually happened. And so years later, Marcus comes to collect. Hundreds upon thousands upon whatever amount of time later, Marcus comes to collect. Because Demek is to come back to Marcus's House of Chthon and say, you know what? I want to broker another deal. And Marcus is like, well, you know what? You've already brokered a deal with us that was under protest, and like we're maybe gonna have you a part of the houses, but like you're really not like fully fledgedly like a true member of all this. And Demek is like, well, yeah, that's great, no, but you know what? When I'm gonna come in and I'm going to seek profit from you, I want all of it. Every single bit of everything that you have your hands in, I want to hand in as well. Like, I want every bit of money that you're going to make off of this place, I want to make too. Like, I want every single, like, spoonful of sugar coming out of this place. And Marcus is like, you know what? Like, I've been waiting for this. Like, I've been waiting for this to happen. Because Demek thinks that he has some kind of thing over Marcus because of the whole Mayans being sacrificed or taken as, like, pet projects or whatever. But Marcus is like, you know what, I've been doing this on purpose. Like, there was a reason why Marcus had done that because of the whole flashback that is to be shown on this episode now. And Demek mentions that he's a pureblood and that whatever he has, he can take because he's a pureblood. And that is really starting to, like it's really just the turns against the purebloods, and, like, it's becoming that kind of battle now. It's like, forget about Blade. Let's just talk about this whole pureblood versus turned-blood thing. Like, that's all I guess they have for the end of this show, is just, like, the battle between vampires to have all these houses just get killed off because they have nothing better to do. So, So Marcus is to get prepped. He's taking off his blazer. He's kind of buttoning up his or rolling up his shirt to eventually just start beating the living crap out of Demick. Like there is this kind of back and forth, but it's mostly going in Marcus's favor. And like Marcus is grabbing like candlesticks and beating the crap out of Demick with this. And like it gets to the point where obviously Demick is losing, but he's still wanting to drive Marcus crazy. Like Marcus tosses Demick's head into this fire and Demick is burning. And like this is a pretty cool fight. It's pretty great. So Demick is to tell Marcus that the funny thing of it is that Demick doesn't remember Marcus at all from any of his past. To Marcus, like that's the time, like this is kind of like the Street Fighter quote from the Jean-Claude Van Damme Street Fighter thing, where where Bison tells the one girl, it's like, well, when I came into your town, I changed your whole life. But for me, it was Wednesday. Like, that's what Demick kind of like mentions in this part here, where he was like for me, I changed your entire life, but like when like if you were to ask me if I remember any part of that, not at all. Like I don't remember the woman that I took from you. I don't remember the uh like who you were before this time, like, and it's kind of sad that you remember that and you have been holding this grudge for I don't know how long. Like for me, I have completely gone oblivious about the whole thing. And so that's what drove frickin' Marcus to just be crazy even more. Just be like, I am just gonna frickin' take this tomahawk and shove it in your head and kill you that way. And so Marcus is now like, because uh, he had gotten like a fire poker like through his chest, and so Marcus had to like shove this fire poker through this wall so he can like pull himself off of it. And so now like Marcus is like, ugh, like I'm injured, I'm hurt, somebody help me. And so Chase and Krista go and are helping Marcus. And Blade is just doing, like, Blade in this episode is just doing, like, camera feeds and seeing if he can sneak through the House of Chthon through this wall, which he actually can't. Because if he were to put explosives on this wall, the cavalry was to come in. And so, like, Shen and Blade are just going through this sewer system to try to see if they can tap into the camera feed. And eventually you just see shots of them periodically just looking through the cameras, and that's all they really do throughout a bulk of this episode. And then eventually when they lose the feed of the camera, eventually we see Blade, who is to physically go by the House of Chthon to see what's up, and eventually what's up is something that he will not like. So I'll get to that. So Chase is to go after Demixcoon, and Demixcoon is asking where Demick is, and Chase is like, well, you're going to join him shortly, because I'm going to kill you off. So what's going on with Charlotte? So let's get to that so that we can kind of wrap up this review. So Charlotte is seemingly noticed that Gleneth is not back yet. She's not back from her outing. So Charlotte is to say, well, we're going to have to escalate or accelerate what our plan is, because like we now know that Krista cannot be trusted. So if anything, Thorn, you go ahead and go and get Chase. Go and grab her, and we'll use her as a pawn or a hostage or something. So Collins. Yeah, let's get to Collins. So, kind of Collins. Like, I kind of figured out what was going to happen to Collins before this was to all happen. But, like, it's kind of interesting that eventually, like, it does actually go that way. So, Collins is talking to Sorensen, and really, like, Collins is getting his like bag together, and he's basically heading out. And all of a sudden, Sorensen is to kind of like open up this door of this car, and Collins is to see that he has a familiar tattoo. And so Collins is busting out his gun and is to basically, hey, you're one of them. You're one of them, Sorensen. And Sorensen is like, yeah, so what? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do about this? Like, are you gonna shoot me? Like, man, I can't wait for that to happen. For a million freaking people to be after you because you shot me. And you're gonna look like the bad guy here because it doesn't make sense why all of a sudden you pulled a gun on me. And so Collins just takes Sorensen and then just tosses him through this car window, I guess to knock him out. And then Collins just goes on the run to meet this girl named Jessica, and Collins is telling Jessica like I had nowhere to go, and plus I also needed to find a very attractive looking woman. And you just fit the bill. So Collins is now like trying to figure out his case, and Jessica is to just be like, well, you know what? If you would have told me like before with all this like vampire stuff going on and all this stuff, like I would have gotten the white coats on you. But now I'm starting to see that maybe you might be right, Collins, about all this, and so. Like Jessica is now like starting to like go into the conspiracies or aliens or whatever kind of theories, and like she is buying into what Collins is saying. Like she's picking up what he's putting down. And so really we're going in that direction with something with Jessica and Collins. So I guess they're gonna be like Collins is probably gonna have to be like a PI and like go out of his way to try to be like a cop who has to deal some rough justice, and with Jessica bizarrely at his side. So what is to happen to wrap up this episode? So Krista is to go on and put Marcus to bed, but it seems like they're going to be doing a little bit more than putting Marcus actually to bed. It seems that Krista is also going to get into Marcus's bed, and they are going to go at it. So all of a sudden, we are to start to see that some guy is a little bit of a creep. Somebody is a peeping Tom, and that, of course, is a guy named Blade. Blade all of a sudden is adjacently staring at both Marcus and Krista in their bed together, smooching it out, and all kinds of things. And Blade is like, oh, like I'm betrayed. I thought me and Krista could have had something, but I guess I was wrong. And also they had like Dr. Chang in this episode, or Chang. I'm probably ill pronouncing that, but the doctor from the other episode, that was here for some reason that honestly didn't really matter to me, because this is going to be the last time we ever see this doctor. So really, I think that covers a bulk of this episode. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was any important things that I probably forgot about, and I don't think I did. So I think it's about time to call that a day. Thank you for watching these. They're really fun. Eventually, sometimes when I can actually make jokes during them, because a lot of times I'm just like, I'm done. A lot of times I'm just trying to speed through them, and a lot of times I don't have these like creative jokes I can pop through and make fun of stuff. So I think it's about that time to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.